Okay, we are on, I think like part 53 or 54, somewhere around there. And we left off right here on the Hermetic books, and we're going to go to this excerpt right here, so I'll just dive straight into it. The glory of all things is God, and deity and divine nature. The principle of all things existing is God, and the intellect and nature, and matter and energy and fate, and conclusion and renovation, for there were boundless darkness in the abyss and water, and a subtile spirit, intellectual in power, existing in chaos. But the holy light broke forth, and the elements were produced from among the sand of a watery essence. And this one's from Orapolo. The world appears to them, the Egyptians, to consist of a masculine and feminine nature, and they engrave a scarabaeus for Athena, and a vulture for Hephaestus. For these alone of all gods they consider both male and female in their nature. Yeah, I kind of see that too. It's really it's a really interesting like facet of like the reality that we live in, where there's always like a male and a female like dichotomy of sorts. I don't know. I guess both like in an ideal sense, like when we think of like good, there's always bad, so it's like a dichotomy of some sort. We think like things are we say that things are like black and white, right? Oftentimes we do say gray areas, but I don't want to get into too much detail about all that. But in essence, we have like we take a look at like our government structure, and the political parties that are one or the other. What else do we have? Just yeah, there's male and female and like animals. There's a great sky above us and a dark abyss below us. It's these two like principles, which makes sense to me, but to like kind of like I don't know, like not necessarily revere that, but kind of like take that as to be like a reality of things. Like it's never three things. For reproduction, it's always like two. I'm just trying to think of like all the ancient animals and which animals are like kind of like don't reproduce through like a male and female, or if they reproduce by themselves using like kind of like a cell splitting. I don't know what it's called. It's like all that stuff. It's really interesting to just kind of it tells you the truth about our more ancient past, and to say that our ancient past may at some point have been not male and female, but just one rather, and then like the two come from the one. But that's, I don't know, that's something that's probably not too much detail in this book, so to speak. Okay, yeah. I don't even know where I left off, to be honest. Did I skip it? Did I scroll down? Oh yeah, no, I skipped down. Okay, so this is from Sharamon. Sharamon and others believe that nothing existed prior to the sensible worlds, and they place among the foremost of such opinions the sentiments of the Egyptians, who hold that there are no other gods than those which are called planets and the constellations of the zodiac, and such as these. They say also that the honors paid to the 10 great gods, and those which are called heroes, whose names appear in the almanacs, are nothing else than charms for the cure of evils, and observations of the rising and setting of stars, and prognostications of future events. For it seems that they esteem the sun to be the demiurgus, and hold that the legends about Osiris and Isis, and all other their mythological fables, have reference in either to the stars, their appearances, and occultations, I think that's how you say it, and the periods of their risings, or to the increase and decrease of the moon, or to the cycles of the sun, or to the diurnal and nocturnal hemispheres, or to the river. In short, that everything of the kind relates merely to physical operations and has no connection or reference whatever to incorporeal and living essences properly so called. Most of them also suppose that some indissoluble connection exists between our concerns and the motions of the stars by a kind of necessity which they call destiny, whereby all sublunary things are connected with these gods and depend upon them. Hence they serve and honor them with temples and statues and the like, as the only beings capable of influencing destiny. That's kind of like a scientific way to explain it almost. So, our sun gives us energy, right? So I think we were looking at the last video of like how the sun's like a shepherd and how these people were explaining things back then as like the planets kind of like, follow the sun or follow the star in its orbit, and then that creates, what the solar system we have and what we see, and how they're able to explain that back then is, it's a mystery to me. But when it comes to like flat Earth stuff, I'm kind of on the fence with it. I know people like to just reject it completely, and when I was younger, I did actually reject it completely. I thought it was a really dumb idea, but now that I think about things, it's never what it could seem. And what that means is like, we could be seeing solar systems and stars and whatnot, but what if it's not the case, and what we're seeing like really with stars are just like holes in a greater like cube, or not cube, excuse me. What is this, Minecraft? No, like a sphere. Like things kind of like revolve on the outside, and then there's also like a revolving inside, and even maybe below us too could be like another inside. It's just the densities are different, if that makes any sense. It's really hard to like kind of like think about that or like consider that, but it's, and then the reason why I say like maybe a flat Earth, it's not necessarily that it's a flat Earth, but it's that like there's limitations on what we're doing as humans right now. We're like in a really like strict, orderly kind of junction. We follow these rules so critically. It's so critical that like we don't have our pilots fly off to these remote areas. We always take these like special flight paths where we're going. It's like, and then they say like, oh, it's all closed borders. It's just, it's, I don't know. It gets into the whole idea that like people mark their territory, but at the same time, people are so like, this world's only temporary. How are you gonna claim so much land for yourself and for the people after you when this whole world is greater than you? So it's like, what stops me from going on a hike and going to Canada, and then them telling me I gotta get kicked out of this land that's here for a very long time, longer than any of these folks that are guarding it. It's just, I think that's a form of corruption on this earth. I think back when things were not so dire, I think maybe things were so plentiful and people could just roam around and do stuff freely, and everything's just so scarce now, maybe. And that scarcity causes people to be so bitter towards each other. Sorry to go off on these weird tangents. I know these are really like, these are more philosophical tangents that I've been going on rather than just like kind of like traditional historical ones, but I think this really ties into like, you know, human history and like, you know, the way people thought back then, and how this thought process and this like, you know, response to our environment kind of changes, and how it could have been back then, you know, just kind of taking a step back and looking at what's back then versus what's now. So continuing, the Orphic Fragments from Orpheus, and this looks like a bunch of wait, hold on, did I read all this, or did I not? Did I just skip through it? I'm sorry. No, I finished it. Sorry, I'm like a little bit tired today, honestly. Been quite busy with school at the moment, so I've been able to pump out as many videos as I really would like to. Just only have so much time, you know. Okay, so there's a bunch of Greek. Okay, so here's where it gets into like English. So, Orphic Fragments. So that must be something to do with like the Greek city-states and whatnot, and all of Greece. Definitely Greek. So Zeus is the first. Zeus is Zeus the thunder is the last. Zeus is the head. Zeus is the middle, and by Zeus all things were fabricated. Zeus is male, and mortal Zeus is female. Zeus is the foundation of the earth and the starry heaven. Zeus is the breath of all things. Zeus is the rising, or is the rushing of indefatigable fire. That's a new word for me. Alright. Zeus is the root of the sea. He is the sun and moon. Zeus is the king. He is the author of universal life. One power, one demon, the mighty prince of all things. One kingly frame in which this universe revolves. Water and fire, earth and ether, night and day, and Metis, counsel, the primeval father, and all delightful Eros, love. All these things are united in the vast body of Zeus. Would you behold his head and his fair face? It is the resplendent heaven, round which his golden locks of glittering stars are beautifully exalted in the air. On each side are the two golden taurine horns, the rising and setting, the tracks of the celestial gods, his eyes and the sun opposing moon, the infallacious mind, the royal incorruptible ether. From Orpheus. First I sung the obscurity of ancient chaos, how the elements were ordered and the heaven reduced to bound, and the generation of the wide-bosomed earth and the depth of the sea, and Eros, love the most ancient, self-perfecting and of manifold design, how he generated all things and parted them from one another. And I have sung of Cronus so miserably undone, and how the kingdom of the blessed immortals descended to the thunder-loving Zeus. Alright. This is kind of more, you know, just kind of Greco-Roman post-Homeric lore, I guess. First I have sung the vast necessity of ancient chaos, and Cronus, who in the boundless tracts brought forth the ether, and the splendid and glorious Eros of a twofold nature, the illustrious father of night, existing from eternity, whom men call Phanes, for he first appeared. I have sung the birth of powerful Brimo, Hecate, and the unhallowed deeds. Of the earth-born giants. Is that the Titans? Who showered down from heaven their blood, the lamentable seed of generation, from whence sprung the race of mortals who inhabit the boundless earth forever. Chaos was generated first, and then the wide-bosomed earth, ever stable seat of all, the immortals that inhabit the snowy peaks of Olympus, and the dark aerial Tartarus in the depths of the permeable earth. And Eros, the fairest of the immortal gods, that relaxes the strength of all, both gods and men, and subjugates the mind and the sage will in their breasts. From chaos were generated Erebus and black night, and the night again were generated ether and day, whom she brought forth, having conceived from the embrace of Erebus. Excuse me. Let's drink some milk. Okay. And the earth produced the starry heaven equal to herself, that it might enclose all things around herself. First was chaos and night, and black Erebus and vast Tartarus, and there was neither earth, nor air, nor heaven, but in the boundless bosoms of Erebus, night with her black wings first produced an aerial egg, from which at the completed time sprang forth the lovely Eros, glittering with golden wings upon his back, like the swift whirlwinds. But embracing the dark winged chaos in the vast Tartarus, he begot our race, the birds, and the first brought us to light. The race of immortals was not, till Eros mingled all things together. But when the elements were mixed one with another, heaven was produced, and ocean and earth, and the imperishable race of all the blessed gods. Chaos and a vast yawning chasm on every side. Maya, supreme of gods, immortal night, tell me this: how shall I constitute the magnanimous first principles of the immortals, surround all things with ineffable ether, and place them in the mid-heaven? This cosmogony is delivered by the birds in the comedy so-called, and in this line they claim the priority of birth before the gods as well as men. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to kind of read that footer real quick. I invoke Protagonus, of a double nature great, wandering through the aether, egg-born, rejoicing in thy golden wings, having the countenance of a bull, the procreator of the blessed gods and mortal men, the renowned light, the far celebrated Erysipeus, ineffable, occult, impetuous, all-glittering strength, who scatterest the twilight clouds of darkness from the eyes, and roamest throughout the world upon the flight of thy wings, who bringest forth the pure and brilliant light. Wherefore I invoke thee as Phanes, as Priapus the king, and as dazzling fountain of splendor. Come then, blessed being, full of wisdom and generation, come in joy to thy sacred, ever-varying mystery. Be present with the priests of thy orgias. I'm not going to pronounce it the other way. Okay, one thing I kind of want to point out and kind of say, okay, hold on, let me catch what I was going to say. The way they distinguish mortals and the way things are distinguished as these, like, I wouldn't say fish people, or, like, this one they're saying, like, birds, and then they're also saying, what are the bull, right? So, they got these, like, strange depictions, right? So, it makes you wonder, when you know, if we're to know our true history, right? Like, let's take, like, evolution to be the most conclusive and, like, truth. Like, there's no other answer but the modern evolution theory that we have going on today, right? So let's put this into perspective, right? That's a conclusive theory, and now we have all these ancient books, right? All these scriptures, all these, like, depictions on these Egyptian glyphs, Mesopotamian, Sumerian glyphs, right? Tell me why there's no monkey, there's no gorilla, there's none of that sort nothing that relates us to those things if we're said to have come close to that. Now, anybody can easily argue, like, hey, you know, these people didn't figure that stuff out yet. They wanted to associate them with more valiant, you know, animals that are in the wild and whatnot. But like if these people have like all-knowing truths and honor and like, you know, like knowledge and here I'm making a claim that, you know, at some distant past, you know, these beings, some form of mankind acquired advanced technology and then it all collapsed and destroyed itself and it got restarted, right? So at what point were these people, you know, kind of catching on like, hey, we come from monkeys, right? I'm just trying to like put evolutionary theory into like practice, you know, because think about it. All these depictions, right? None of them have like any monkeys, no gorillas, nothing of that sort, right? If anything, there's like more strange, like if you go to like, you know, other places, you know, you got strange looking like monster looking like kind of like statues of beings and stuff like that, and all this stuff, but nothing like a gorilla. You even have like depictions of snakes, right? Nothing with like a gorilla, chimpanzee, nothing with a monkey. Nothing. The most you got is like one of the Nazca lines over in Peru with the freaking spider monkey with the you know, the swirly tail and whatnot. That's the most you get. Or you get like Thoth depicted as like a mandrill, but even then, like, you know, these people writing down really knowledgeable stuff, right? And if these people really did know the truth to its fullest extent, why don't we see like why doesn't the truth come to be that, you know, we really did come from monkeys? This is just what I'm putting into perspective. It now just like occurred to me, honestly, just thinking about that, you know, none of these ancient books are depicting like evolutionary theory at all, not even to the slightest. If for some reason these people have always said that like we came from gods, there's these people came down, there's advanced technology. That's always what we get with all these freaking ancient books, man. Even some of the archaeology and legends and folklore, like in remote places, like in Indonesia, Cambodia, dude, or even like in, you know, parts of Africa, they have all this lore of like contact with like, you know, beings with advanced technology, for lack of a better word, but you can say gods, spirits. It's all there. And yet, you know, it doesn't occur to many of us because the thing is, you know, there's like super, like I said earlier, there's like a super control on this earth, you know. We're on these like flight paths, you know. So we're in like little protected gardens. Like if like I've said this like in videos before, like none of us really go out into the wilderness, you know, and seek out truth. It's always behind a camera now, you know. But, you know, it's because we're really like fragile beings, you know. We're very frail beings. We don't have very long lifespans. Everything's so temporary, and we try to grab onto the things that we really enjoy. And I kind of understand that. Where did I read all this? Oh, darn it. Yeah, no, I did read all this because that word. All right, let me move on. I know I kind of am going. I'm going on like a lot of philosophical tangents because there's just like a lot of philosophical things from these excerpts. I'm kind of noticing more than like kind of like conditional human or history, mankind history, whatever you want to call it, human history. Alright, let's continue. So, no one has seen Protagonus with his eyes, except the sacred knight alone. All others wandered when they beheld in the ether the unexpected light, such as the skin of the immortal Phanes shot forth. Alright, more mysticism. From Orpheus, once again, what Orpheus has asserted upon the subject is as follows. From the beginning the ether was manifested in time, evidently having been fabricated by God, and on every side of the ether was the chaos, and gloomy night enveloped and obscured all things which were under the ether. By attributing to night a priority, he intimates the explanation to be that there existed an incomprehensible nature and a being supreme above all others and pre-existing, the demiurgus of all things, as well as of the ether itself, and of the night, as of all the creation which existed and was... Okay, hold on, let me read this footer. So this is referring to something up there. I have given this fragment from Malala, in whose text it appears to be less corrupted. It was originally preserved by Timotheus, who has evidently endeavored to explain it upon Christian principles. His parenthetical explanations have been considered as part of the Orphic text and been the cause of its obscurity. Without tampering the text, I have endeavored to restore it in the translation to its original purity. It is doubtless the same passage from the Theogony of Orpheus, commented upon by Damascius. Okay, so we'll continue here. So, and existed and was concealed under the ether. Moreover, he says, the earth was invisible on account of the darkness, but the light broke through the ether and illuminated the earth and all the material of the creation, signifying by this light, which bursts forth through the ether, the before-mentioned beings who was supreme above all things, and its name, which Orpheus learnt from the oracle, is Metis, Phanes, and Arispius, which is the common Greek language, may be translated will or counsel, light, life-giver, signifying when explained that these three powers of the three names are the only one power and strength of the only God, whom no one ever beheld, and of those whose power can have an idea or comprehend the nature. By this power all things were produced, as well incorporeal principles as the sun and moon, and their influence, and all the stars, and the earth, and the sea, and all things. Dang, there's a lot. I don't think I'm gonna read this footer. A lot of this is just kind of like, just some like, I'd say like just ad lib for some of the quotes he's kind of pulling from. But I kind of believe him honestly at this point. With I've translated some of these blocks of text that are in Greek, and they line up with his translations very well. So I'll give it to Cory for putting this together. That are visible and invisible in them, and man, says he, was formed by this God out of the earth, and endued with a reasonable soul, in like manner as Moses has revealed. Okay, well, I mean, it's interesting to like just take a note of, even though it's really like mystical, but it is what it is, Okay, so let's see here. This is more stuff from Orpheus, probably just like a bunch of fragments and tablets. Metis, bearing the seed of the gods, whom blessed inhabitants of Olympus call Phanes Protagonus, and Metis, the first father, and all delightful Eros. Soft Eros and inauspicious Metis. Metis, bearing the generation of the gods, illustrious Aresipius. Okay, more from Orpheus. Orpheus has the following theological speculation in allusion to Phanes. Therefore the first god bears with himself the heads of animals, and many and single, of a bull, of a serpent, and of a fierce lion, and they sprang from the primeval egg in which the animal is seminally contained. Yeah, you see what I mean? There's nothing like a gorilla or a monkey, man. I'm telling you guys. Like I said, it really is fair to argue, that these people back then, early people, they wanted to associate themselves with, valiant animals. That's the best way I can explain it. But like, you see a chimpanzee, right? Like these people in the wild, like they don't occur to themselves like, hey, these guys got fingernails, they got a nose, they got eyes, they got all this stuff that looks so close to us. Why don't we revere this thing as our ancestor? It's like nothing is like, nothing like alludes to that. There's nothing with the monkey. Like I said, truth be told, but like, oh dude, something just doesn't sit right with me with that. I just thought about that like today, and I'm just like, wow. Now that's just like kind of like, something's just like ringing in the back of my head now. Just like look at this, like even down here, from this next excerpt, from the ancient theologists. The theologist places him around the heads of a ram, a bull, a lion, and a dragon, and assigns him first both the male and female sex. Female and father is the mighty god Eurysipus. To him also the wings are first. Let me see this. I suppose that the following was the original. Okay, so why does it look like this? To him also the wings are first given. Okay. This is more from the ancient theologists. They, the theurgists, assert that night in heaven, Uranus reigned, and before these their most mighty father, who distributed the world to gods and mortals, over which he first reigned, the illustrious Eurysipus, having in her hands the excellent scepter of Eurysipus, who first reigned over the gods after his mother Night. Interesting, okay, more from the ancient theologists. In short, that to the power of the Son is to be referred the control and supremacy of all things, is indicated by the theologists, who make it evident in the mysteries by the following short invocation. O all-ruling Son, Spirit of the world, power of the world, light of the world. Okay, it says here, this extract is from a MS of Syrianus. This is given by Lobeck. Why is this boxed? Huh. I wonder why the original owner of this book boxed this. You know, out of all the things that they made note of, they made note of this right here. Where is this? I wonder why they... Okay, alright, well. Yeah, just more sun lore. Alright, we're gonna leave off here, and then the next video we'll start off here in the Pythagorean Fragments, but this was a good, honestly, like a really good brain food for me, honestly. It just kind of like spurred like a new idea in my head that I just never really thought of, you know, because you know, and looking for the truth, you know, the truth is going to be coming out in ways that just we don't understand. And you know, one example of what I'm saying is like, you know, how it just so happens that Mesoamerica has the same type of motives as like the stuff in the Middle East, like just so much of it, right? But it leads you to think that there's nothing there. Same thing with these, the lack of depictions of like chimpanzees or monkeys or what have you, you know? It's like, honestly, like if I was like a newbie or like an ancient human, whatever, you know, and you know, let's say like I'm in China, right, and I come across like a chimpanzee, you know, and I'm just like, dang, these guys look so close to humans, like why isn't that, what, dude, it's like boggling me right now. Anyways, we'll leave off right here at the Pythagorean Fragments.